All right, let's look into the warnings we have here and let's get rid of them. And what they're saying here is, look, if you're initiating a segue from a view controller, you got to give me an identifier. So this one scene that we have over here, that guy right there, we need an identifier on it. So we'll call the segue identifier show1. And then we're getting another one down here. Oh, maybe that's the same one, just in 2 spots. Yep. Okay. Great. Warnings are gone. All right, let's get back to our little demo here. So let's give ourselves a backing controller for this first one up here. So we'll call this one new file, one view controller, and import UI kit, class 1 view controller. That's going to be a UI view controller. Okay, now for fun, let's go play a little bit with closures just to drive home that point. So view did load. When view did load, we always call super version of the lifecycle methods. So let's mark that. View controller lifecycle. Okay, and now let's play with a closure. So as soon as we get in here, we're going to print something. What do we want to print? Well, let's create a closure and let's immediately invoke it. And let's pass the value 3. Okay, so how do we write that? Well, we need a parameter list. So x is an int, maybe. And let's have it return a string. And now for the body of this, let's return the string. Let's do a little string interpolation here, and let's do x times x. And now that seems to compile. Let's run it and see. Oh, whoops. I need to attach it to the, go back over here. I need to attach that view controller in the identity inspector to say that scene uses one view controller. And now I can run it. And I'll be looking for something in the console down here. And there it is. It prints 9 when that view displays. So back to the one view controller. That's a closure. This much is the closure. I can immediately invoke it and pass it a parameter. I've told it that the parameter, I'm going to call it x, it's of type int. So in particular, I couldn't put the string, whoops, get my fingers on the right keys here. I couldn't put the string 3 in here. That's going to be a compile error. Doesn't match the type. I'm expecting an int. Okay, but I'm going to return a string, and there it is. Okay, so that's one use of a closure. Let's go a little bit further here then, and let's build a UI here, and let's demonstrate our input fields and multi-line input fields. And so back to the storyboard there. All right. On this guy now, get my object library. Okay, let's give ourselves a couple of buttons to do some things. And I don't really want that up right against the nav bar there, so I'm going to pull it down about 10 points. And let's put our auto layout constraints in place. So control drag, and I want leading space to safe area, top space to safe area. Okay, that's good. And then what is that top space? If I look at the size inspector, I'll see it over there. Top space of 10. Okay, that's what I want. All right, now let's option drag to create ourselves another button. If I can make this happen, option drag, there we go. Okay, and now what I'm going to want to do, there's the segue that I can perform. When I tap on this first button, I'm going to perform the segue. We'll call this move on. And what I'm going to do is I want to have a text. So I'm going to put a label in this second guy over here. Let's do that. Label. And again, about 10 from the top is where I want that. So leading space, top space. And that top space, I hope that's about 10. Yeah, it's 10. Okay, great. And then Actually, you know what? I want to have that. Let's drag it to the right edge as well. And do trailing space to safe area. And then we'll let the height be the intrinsic height of the label. And if I look at the attributes on that label, I can change font and other things here, but I can also set the number of lines. If I leave it at 1, then I'm only going to ever see 1 line in the label. But if I change it to, well, I can fix the number at 3, say, but I can also set it to 0, and then it just uses as many lines as it needs. That's what I'm after here. Because I'm going to have 2 ways of moving on. This is going to be use multi-line text is what I'm going to call this. Use multi-line text. Okay, and let's see, did I not get the auto layout constraints for that guy set up? I didn't. Control drag, trailing space, and I want top space. And now I just want space in between these guys, horizontal space that I'd like to be greater than or equal to 0. So that I'm sure that there's some separation between them, even if I translate and the text gets longer. Okay, now I want a text view, this one. And we will have it go the full width. And now we want a multi-line text. In order to be able to, well, let's put a label in here just to say, whoops, multi-line text input, I guess, input. Okay, so let's set up our constraints. We want to have vertical spacing, and we want the leading edge there, and we may as well drag this to the right edge and do trailing space to safe area, and let's set that to, well, actually, you know what, we could drag this across right there, and now we can go update the constraints on this. And now let's see, what's it complaining about? Oh, I didn't auto layout this guy. All right, let's reset him. The text input. Okay, and let's do its leading, and over here it's trailing. Okay, and now it wants to know its height. So we'll just set a height constraint on that guy. Oh, what else am I missing? Vertical spacing? Vertical spacing. There we go. Okay, and now a multi-line text field, text view. Let's see. That one is, I forget. Back to the list. Oh, actually text. There we go. Text view. It's that looking icon right there. So clear it, and it's showing up right there. That one is the multi-line text view. And let's just have that occupy that much space. And let's do our constraints. So control drag, I want vertical spacing, leading and trailing. And then I'm going to set a height constraint on this guy by control dragging within it and just choosing height. And let's make sure that's, yeah, 220 is a good round number. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to programmatically transition, but if we click this first button, then we use the text that's over here and copy it into the label, and if we use the second button, we use the text that's in the multi-line view to copy over to the label. All right, so this guy is going to need a view controller because I need an outlet to that label. So let's make another view controller. So it's the 1-2 view controller maybe. I don't know. So new file, Swift file, 1-2 view controller. Import UI kit, class 1-2 view controller, which is a UI view controller, and it's going to want a label. And so now back to my storyboard. Let's make that last scene a 1-2 view controller. To the identity inspector, 1-2 view controller. All right, and now an outlet for it. Oh, I'm on manual, not automatic. It's not letting me do. Let's see if I build. Will it enable? It's not enabling automatic. Okay, let's go manual then, and we'll go pick up the 1-2 view controller. And now I want to control drag to create my outlet. And I'm going to call this the main label. And in this guy's view did load. Oh, actually, you know what? We'll let the... We need one other property to communicate between these two view controllers, because I'm not going to be able to set an outlet before I perform the segue. The outlet doesn't exist until after the segue completes. The outlet doesn't exist until view did load. So if I implement view did load, so again, always call super.viewDidLoad. Okay, right here is where I first have main label accessible to me. I want to be able to say main label.text is assigned some property. So I need a property that the previous view controller can set to communicate, here's the text I want in the label. So let's call this var main text, and we'll call it a string optional. And we'll assign main text over here in the view did load. Okay, and now back to this one. Let's see, automatic is working for this guy. Okay, so here I need two actions. I need an action for the move on. Okay, so action. We'll call this move on. And the sender is a button. Touch up inside, great. Okay, and now we need another action, and that is for the use multi-line. So control drag, action, move on multi-line. And the sender is a UI button, connect. Okay, so how do we move on? We're going to programmatically perform the segue. And what we're going to do here, we're going to create ourselves a property. We're going to call this display text. It's an optional string. And so when we click on move on, we're going to say display text is assigned, and now I need a label. I need an outlet for both the single line and the multi-line text inputs. So let's go create ourselves an outlet section. Oops. Okay, so this first one, outlet, so this is a single line text field, and control drag, and this is a multi-line text view. They use text field versus text view to distinguish the single line versus the multi-line. Okay, so now over here I can say display text in this case is going to be my single line text field dot text. Okay, and then I can say, hey, please perform the segue with identifier. And now here I really should make a storyboard constant. Private struct storyboard. And this will be static. Let move on segue identifier equal some string. And what is that string? Well, let's get it out of the storyboard. It's that one, its identifier, show one. Copy, paste. Okay. So this will be storyboard dot move on segue identifier, and the sender, we'll just pass in the button as the sender here. And now similarly over here, display text this time is going to be the multi-line text field, or text view dot text, and perform segue with identifier, and it's the same one, storyboard dot move on segue identifier, and the sender will be the other button in this case. Let's see if it even works. Does it work? Okay, so if I use the multi-line text, I I'm missing the last bit of the communication. No, it doesn't work because I forgot to implement the prepare for segue. Okay, so remember there's also a prepare. Okay, where is it? Prepare for segue, that guy right there. Okay, so I need to do an if let cast here. So if let the segue's destination controller, if let, this is 1,2 VC equal segue destination as 1,2 view controller. So if that cast works, then I can say 1,2 VC dot main text equals our display text that we had saved earlier. See, if I had tried to say 1,2 VC dot main label, that is guaranteed to be nil right here. And if I tried to set its text to display text, it's going to crash at runtime, guaranteed, because the outlets aren't set until after view.did_load gets called. Anyway, so this is how we communicate from one MVC unit to another, or at least one mechanism for communicating. Go set a property on the destination when we prepare for the segue. Okay, now let's see if it works. Okay, so use multi-line text, and I get that Latin in there. Just move on. That's the single line. There's nothing in there. I start typing stuff, and let's see, why is it not letting me edit? Okay, here we go. This is a test, and if I use multi-line, nothing different, but I use the single line, and there it copies in, this is a test. And in my multi-line, if I copy everything and now paste, 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 use multi-line text, you see it fills up, and I don't have a scroll view, so I'm not able to scroll to see more, but I've got all of that stuff sitting in the label. Okay, man, a lot of material here. Let's go back to the standard display, and let's zoom out just a bit. Okay, this is kind of a grab bag of everything. Oh, and we ought to try this on an iPad too. So let's go run this on an iPad while I'm talking through this. So a lot of stuff. We've got a split view controller at the very top. In the master side, we have a tab bar controller. In the detail side, we have just a view controller with an image in it. Within each of the tabs, we have our own navigation controller hierarchy. And in this one case, we show you how to segue and communicate between MVC units. We've got the different kinds of text inputs. We've got the different kinds of switches and bars and sliders and all that kind of stuff. And you see how this works in an iPad. As I switch between tabs, there's my click and the action down here in the console. All this stuff is working fine. And so hopefully this helps you to get a little bit of insight into how you use some of the different UI components. This is the end of this demo series. Thanks for watching. Hope it was helpful.